Peace, peace, peace. Welcome to another episode of Wise the Dome TV. Today, I have a very, very special guest. My sister, somebody I've been, knowing for a while. Um, and she's an educator. She's promoting and pushing STEM to the youth in a way that hasn't been really done. And so we have a lot. She also has a great show. I'm pretty sure you all already know and are already tapped in. And if not, the link will be in the description. Make sure you do that. But you've seen her in a lot of different places and a lot of different shows, and she's always speaking a good word. Dr. Oya Ma'at, thank you for coming through.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much for having me, brother. I saw your invitation and I was excited when I did receive an invitation to be a guest on your show because you have a lot of dynamic discussions. You bring a lot of guests who are very informed, about so many different, topics, from history to culture to, religion, spirituality to politics, economics. And so I love your platform and it's an honor. It's an honor to be here.
Awesome. It's an honor. It's an honor for me to have you on. Like we were building about when it comes to what we do as far as in media and things that we've noticed within the conscious community. What have like what have you seen through your observation?
Well, one of my observations is this. There was a brother, and shout out to brother Jabari Nator from Survivors Nation, Reality Speaks, Tubman City. And so that brother, I remember years ago, he told me, he said, sis, he said, a lot of these books that you promote, it wasn't just him. It was him. I'm thinking about another brother, Haki Shakur, my brother, Knowledge Born Allah. It was a lot of different brothers in the community who would say little things like, sis, these books you're reading, a lot of women aren't, a lot of sisters aren't into, the type of stuff that you're pushing. Cause I'm pushing Dr. Amos Wilson and, Dr. Jacob Carruthers and I'm pushing all of that, Dr. Asa Hilliard and Tony Browder. And I'm just, pushing that stuff. And they're like, Dr. Wade Nobles, I'm saying, thinking about those, him. And so they, sister, the brothers used to pull me up, sister, a lot of the stuff that you're reading, a lot typically. So me automatically, I'm jumping on the defense. What? What? Right. Yes, the sisters do. I'm defending for the sisterhood, right? Like, yes, we do. We do read that stuff. Y'all brothers ain't the only ones that dig it into that stuff. We did, we read it too. But then I had to go back years later and eat some humble pie and talk to those brothers and tell them that they were 1,000% correct. Brother Jabari said at one point he was working for Everyone's Place, which is a cultural, I don't want to say cultural book center, but a cultural center here in Baltimore. I always call it, the Kemet of consciousness. Some people call it the Mecca of consciousness. I call it the Kemet of consciousness. Shout out to Baba Nati and Mama Tabia who own Everyone's Place. But he said he used to work there years ago, and he said he used to see the brothers come up the steps. They go in one direction, which was, the Asa Hilliards, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark. He said, and the sisters would go in the other direction. So they were looking at, the spirituality, books on spirituality and, growing, herbs and food and things of that nature. So that's what he observed, anecdotally. And so me not understanding that and just coming into this thing maybe about 10 years ago, I'm talking about as an actual educator 10 years ago within the conscious community. I didn't see that at first, but then I started seeing it. I said, these brothers are absolutely correct. The sisters are into the crystals. They're into, and again, this is no diss to anybody's, belief or spiritual system, but a lot of the sisters, they gravitate towards, crystals and herbs and spirituality and things of that nature. And a lot of the brothers tend to go towards, I don't want to call it the heavier stuff because, spirituality is heavy as well, but they tend to go towards the history, the culture, the science, the math. They kind of go that way. And so I was going that way with the brother, and I'm over here too, little something, but I'm more so over here. So a lot of the brothers were shocked. And they were like, what's going on? And so I had to eat that humble pie and tell them that, yeah, they were 1,000% correct.
Well, it's funny that you said that, because in the comments on the last show that I did, which was that I aired at least, it was a sister, Dr. Kimia, and in the comments, a brother was like, "Yo, you had Dr. Ma'at on yet?" I was like, yeah, straight up, yesterday, you know what I'm saying? And I was
Okay.
like, "No, we working on that."
That's
And
crazy because,
that's
yeah, I'm about
crazy.
to say you reached out.
I reached
You
out
reached out.
Sunday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sunday. Okay, cool.
and he said that yesterday. But so how things work. But one thing that I've noticed too, and it, especially in today's time, I don't think it's even just the sisters at this point. There are two, in my opinion, there are multiple facets to what we call the quote unquote conscious community. And one side um deals with a lot of spirituality, maybe esoteric knowledge, religious studies, and things of that nature. And then another side, obviously, as you mentioned, are dealing with the Jacob Caruthers, the Asa Hilliards, the Dr. John Henry Clarks, the Sterling Stuckeys, the amazing, Black studies contributors that we've had over the years.
Absolutely.
And I feel like people like ourselves are sometimes in an uphill battle with that, because it's easy, and I'm not trying to denigrate anybody for whatever path that they're on, but it's easy to remember some esoteric religious knowledge compared to the study that is required to be politically radical and to understand your conditions as a Black person in America and in the whole world, and to understand the inner workings of the system. That requires real study, you to sit down, read a book, take the notes, then get the next book, have some comparative analysis. It's like a never ending process.
Yes.
And like you mentioned, I don't knock anything as far as like spiritual studies, religious studies, because I have, such as yourself, have people who are experts in that come on. It is all a
Absolutely.
part of the Black studies paradigm. But the part that deals with our politics, I think a lot of people shun it because of how difficult it is, and so they prefer to move to something quote unquote spiritual. And look, Dr. Ma'at, here's what happens though. Here's what happens. Even those well-intentioned people that may begin to study like these different spiritual sciences, a lot of times you got these people who are extremely pseudo, who are talking about things that don't even fit within an esoteric paradigm, that are just simply untrue, that are able to come along, be charismatic, and lead our people further away from Black radical traditions for pseudo history that can't be verified.
That's a fact. No, I think that's 1,000. If you was on my show, I'd be hitting the fire button right now. Like, fire. Everything that you just said, brother, was 1,000% correct. And going back to something that you did say earlier, and I know that you meant no harm, but you're right. Like when you're studying science and math, it's tough. It's challenging. When you're studying engineering, it's tough. And so I understand what you're saying. You're like, look, I'm not trying to denigrate those who are into like the crystals and the spirituality. Like we need it all, right? But let's be real here.
Right.
Studying science and higher level mathematics. I'm not talking about algebra 1, 2, and trig and geometry. I'm talking about calculus 1, calculus 2, calculus 3, differential equations, linear algebra, probability and statistics. That stuff takes it's mentally taxing.
Yes.
and it's challenging, right? And so it's a different it requires a different level of intelligence, a different probably should have said that.
That's all good. No,
I just said a different. I didn't say higher or lower. I just said different.
And it's not an intelligence that our people can't achieve if they put their mind to it.
Exactly. So it requires a different level of intelligence, a different level of commitment and dedication and determination. So it's just different.
Mhm.
It's just different. Not saying it's better, but it requires something different. And a lot of our people, they tend not to go into, the sciences. And I want to get into that. Why? Because
Yeah.
I know that you brought me here to talk about
Well,
STEM education and stuff like that.
mhm,
But one thing I did want to
mhm,
say, so I wanted to address that
mhm.
it takes a level of that, because you did mention that a lot of our people don't go that way. But this, I'm so disappointed that now we're at the either or in the conscious community,
Yeah.
right? It's either
Mhm.
I'm going to go this route, which is, like you said, the esoteric knowledge, the spirituality, the herbs, the crystals, the rocks. I'm going to go this route, or I'm going to go the Black studies route, right? With the history and the culture, or I'm going to go the science route, right?
Mm.
With the science and the math, you know, but all of it's interconnected. All of it's interconnected.
Mhm.
I remember there was an interview that I did on Sign Letters. It
Mhm.
was called "The Evolution of Mathematics and Its Applications," right?
Mhm.
And in there, during that interview, I said, when you're practicing math and science, I said in engineering, right? Because engineering is
Mhm.
the application of math and science. I said you're also practicing African spirituality.
Mm.
People didn't get it.
Mm.
People didn't get it.
Mm.
But let me give it to you.
Mhm.
So check this out. When we were in Kemet, think about that. A lot of people look at the pyramids today and they're like, dang, those were great monuments. That was a great engineering project. But we have to understand that engineering was tied to their spiritual beliefs.
Right.
Think
Right.
about the step
Right.
pyramid. Think
Right.
about the step pyramid. Think about the pyramid of Giza, the pyramids of Giza, and the step pyramid. They were all linked to their spiritual beliefs. So engineering, really, in the eyes of our ancestors, it was art.
Mm.
It was art,
Mm.
right?
Right.
Like engineering
Right.
was art,
Right.
in
Right.
the eyes of our ancestors. It's science, it's math, but it's art too. It was a way
Mm.
for them to express their spiritual beliefs. Think
Mm.
about how the I think I want to say it's the Temple Karnak. Baba,
Mhm.
if Baba Browder is watching me, please forgive me. But I want to say it was Karnak, or it may have been Luxor. It was one of the temples he took us to
Mhm.
in December of 2021. And he talked about how during the summer solstice and the winter solstice, which we actually observe, we observe the winter solstice, um, at sunrise, the beams of the sun shine through the holies of holy,
Mhm.
and it lights up the hour. I want to say it was the Temple of Karnak, right? But again, all of these amazing things that we see in Kemet, these engineering things, these engineering projects, they were all linked to their spiritual beliefs.
Mm.
Their spiritual beliefs. So I always tell people, man, science, right? We say it's the systematic study of the physical and natural world.
Mhm.
We say that mathematics is the language of
Mhm.
science, right? It's the
Right.
language of science.
Mhm.
Okay. But when you're studying the natural world, the physical world, right? And you're using mathematics, you're understanding the environment around you, that is spirituality.
Right.
That is Africans, that's spirituality right there.
Right.
And I don't think that people understand that when you study these things, it is a spiritual thing, to be able to understand the universe that we navigate
Mhm.
in, and to
Mhm.
understand that everything is everything and everything is interconnected. That is spiritual. So,
Right.
so I'm just torn with the either or now. We
Mhm.
need the math or the science and engineering and technology, or we need the history, the culture, or we need the earth. We need it all because all of it is interconnected.
Mm.
All of it's cultural. And so I don't think that people understand that there's a connection between STEM, science, technology, that there's a connection between science, technology, engineering, and mathematics and culture.
Right.
It's a connection. But let me tell you why they don't understand that. And it's because of the way that STEM is taught.
Mm.
And that is what my research is doing right now. We're in the process. And when I say I'm thinking about so many other African-centered educations. We're in the process of reforming not even reforming. I don't want to say that. We're in the process of developing an African-centered STEM education model
Mm.
where you have African philosophical thoughts, right?
Mhm.
African philosophical concepts, ideologies, history, all of that, traditions, rituals, all of that will be infused in the teaching of science, technology, engineering, and
Mm.
mathematics. So
Mm.
you'll see it's a connection there. So the model that I'm talking about is African centered. It's called ACSE, African Centered STEM Education. In fact, Baba Amin and I just published a paper with the American Society for Engineering and Education. I'm actually getting ready to fly out to Portland, Oregon on Sunday to present this model. This model is also being published at Purdue University. Right now, they have a journal called JPEER, and that is the Journal for Engineering Education Research. That's getting ready to come out. This model, this new educational framework, this model that we're saying is more effective and beneficial for African American STEM learners. And I say African American only because I'm here, but it's a model that spans the African diaspora. It's a model that heals us from the Ma'afa, right? It heals us from the consequences of systemic racism. A model that connects us to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. A model that makes it easier for us to understand the concepts in these disciplines, easier to learn and understand the concepts within each of these disciplines. That is what I'm in the process of creating alongside with Baba Amin, who's helping me to actually get the research data, because it's data. Everything is data. So it's great to have these ideas. It's great to have these ideas and all of these models, but the questions become, does it work? And I remember calling Baba Amin, Ojuwoke, and I also called Baba Imhotep Fadiup a few years ago. And I was like, we running around with all these, the African-centered education and African, where's the data to show that it's effective? Where's the research? The ideas are great. The models are great. We're saying anecdotally these things work, but where's the data to show that it actually works? And I actually had a conversation with Professor James Small about this either. I told him that's going to be my lane. I want to legitimize African-centered education. And when I say legitimize, I'm not saying it in the eyes of white people.
Yeah.
I'm saying period. It's great to have these models and say, oh, I have observed anecdotally that it works. But does it work for all of us over here in America, all of the Black children over here? What about the children in the diaspora? Does it work? So I told him that is my lane to legitimize and formalize African-centered education, particularly the African-centered or my African-centered STEM education model. And so that's what I'm in the process of building and developing right now. So I do want to do a special salute to Baba Amin, because the UACI, which is the shield you see behind me, the Uhuru Academy Conscious Ingenuity Summer STEM Camp, is the first practical implementation of African-centered STEM education model, the first practical implementation of that. And so that, and also, again, conscious ingenuity. And so we have that, doing some research at different schools and collecting these data to show that these models are actually effective for our people. So, man, I understand why folks don't see the connection. I get why folks don't see the cultural connection because of the way STEM is taught to them.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad you said that. There's so many philosophers of the past that use language like mathematics is the language of God, mathematics is the language of the universe, and they never divorced one from the other, right? And two things. Shout out to Baba Amin Ojuwoke. He's one of the people when I lived in Texas who helped raise me in this community, as far as just knowledge of self, learning my history, understanding politics, education, and how to teach and things of that nature. Two, when we get off the interview, I'm gonna need one of y'all to send me that that essay, because I definitely would love to read that. But I wanted to ask you, when we look at our children, especially Black children here in America, and it's not all, and I'm not making sweeping generalizations, because I don't do that, but just for the sake of conversation, when it comes to our children, in a lot of cases, we seem to have an aversion to math because we have a fear of it. A fear of numbers and what these and the different and the different forms of mathematics. like where does that fear come from as far as with a lot of our children who, because I read an article on this long ago. I can't remember all of the contents, but it talked about not just with black children but children period, that a lot of times parents and maybe even some educators, the way they talk about math to children instills a fear of math in them. Like, would you say that that is correct?
I can actually, yeah, I would say that the way math is spoken about, the way that it's taught, they don't see any ownership in it. Can you
Mm,
imagine telling your children, I'm talking about from birth, teaching our babies from birth,
mm-hmm,
that math is ours,
mm,
science is ours, engineering is ours. It came from us. It came out of the minds of our ancestors. And I'm not saying this because people always say the blackology and we want to boast our. No, 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 no. The reality is this: science did come out of Africa,
mm-hmm.
right? When you start going back, shout out to Brother Uncle Cat. When Brother Uncle Cat always talk about the tools. He
Yeah.
said, you go to Kenya and look at the tools. We were over there making tools. Really,
Mm,
it was a
mm-hmm,
science to what we were doing. We were over there making tools that date back to 2.2 to 3 million years
mm,
down in Kenya. We had the Lumbumbo bone, the Shango
mm-hmm,
bone, showing that our people were studying. It was rudimentary mathematics, but it was mathematics. And then over in Kemet, you have some of the oldest mathematical documents that were right there in Kemet with the different, with the scribe of Amos and others. And so you had that engineering and science and math. It was born in Africa. It
right.
was born in Africa.
Mm-hmm,
And so I think that when we have children, that when we teach math and science and engineering to our children, we need to start there with
mm,
cultivating a sense of ownership of these disciplines.
mm-hmm,
So let's start there. So we say, hey, and then not only are we cultivating or developing a sense of ownership, now what are you fearful of? If
right.
you understand that this is a part of our cultural heritage, right?
Mm,
Where would the fear come from if you understand that?
right.
Right. And then if you also make it relatable to the child's everyday life, shout out to brother Akil Parker.
Mm-hmm,
He has a platform called All This Math. Shout out to that brother
wow.
where he provides different techniques that parents can use to make math a part of their lives. He was saying, like, you might be outside and you see a license tag. Ask your kids to add up those numbers on a license tag, or to multiply those numbers, or subtract those numbers, or even when you're measuring and you're in the kitchen cooking, show how math is a part of your everyday life. When you're cooking, when you're walking outside and you're looking at different things, when you're in the house and you need to measure something, show your kids how math benefits them and how they use it every day.
Mm,
What fear would they have?
right.
If you understand it's a part of your cultural heritage, now you have ownership. Now you're connected to it because you see that you use it
Mm-hmm,
every day
mm-hmm,
without even knowing it. Every
right.
day, you got to drive 2 miles down the street, huh? We got to make a left and we got to go 2 blocks up, right?
Mm,
3 blocks to the left. Now, how many blocks? So making it a part of their everyday experience. And
mm-hmm,
so I think that the issue again is how math is taught and how we speak about math to our children, which contributes. I'm not going to say that it's totally responsible for, but it contributes to their fear.
indeed, indeed. And I'm glad you said that too, because even when I was in school, the way math and science were taught, I was more interested in the literary arts than I was at math and science. Then I didn't become extremely interested in math and science until I began to take a deep dive in studying my history. And it was that sense of ownership where it's like, yo, like this isn't some foreign idea that has been imposed on us to be able to identify such and such, like to have a cultural connection to what people consider a universal language is extremely powerful to the person that's learning it, because it's like, hey, my ancestors created the Nshago bone. My ancestors created this and that, and their communities were based on fractals, and like, because we see African architecture that is based on, what I mean. And so, like, whenever you know these things and you see these things, you're right, it does alleviate a lot of that fear because you know that, hey man, there's a cultural aspect to science and mathematics, and whenever we approach it from that, the same way we approach Black studies, the same way we approach our history, if we just approach that with the same amount of dedication,
That's right.
we can understand it. It's not mathematics is not meant to confuse you, even if you may be confused by it. There are always tools that can help you, understand. Like you mentioned, the brother, what's his YouTube channel? Because I definitely would
Oh
like for
yeah,
people
all this math, brother
all this
Akil,
math.
brother Akil Parker. And make sure you tell him Dr. Ma'at say Dr. Ma'at told me to reach out to you, brother.
Will do,
Yeah,
will
absolutely,
do.
man. Absolutely. But yeah, it's stuff like that. And we gotta move away. And I'm just segueing into something that you asked me in my inbox. You said, I
Mhm.
want you to talk about this white science and white. What the
Yeah.
hell is white science and white math? Are you saying that I'm just trying to understand what it is? Are
Right.
you saying that are you
Well,
calling it that when I'm
mhm,
saying
yeah.
are you calling it that
Mhm,
when white
mhm,
people misuse science
mhm.
or misuse math? Then you're saying that's the white folks stuff. Like, are you calling scientific racism white science? Because if that's the case, I'll give them that and say, yeah,
Right.
if you want to say scientific racism is white science, okay. I mean, I'm fine with that. But just making blanket statements like science is white or math is white, I think that that's extremely ignorant. And I think that that's extremely harmful because what that is doing is we talked about that fear, right?
Hmm.
You talk about that fear. Well,
Hmm.
you already know that Black people, we already function with fear.
Hmm.
That's already in us. Black folks have an inferiority complex. We do function with fear when it comes to whiteness. Like, let's just be real. Black folks do. And so then as soon as you say that's white science, let me stay away from that. That's white math. Let me stay away from that. And what is that doing? If we stay away from math and science,
Hmm.
we're gone.
Hmm.
Dr. Claude Anderson talked about reparations and said we'll be a bottom class people.
Hmm.
Well, you might as well forget the bottom. We'll be under the ground if we don't begin to get involved in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We're done because that is where the world is heading right now.
Hmm.
The world is heading the AI, cybersecurity, machine learning. This is where we're going. And right now, only 5% of scientists and mathematics are blacks.
Hmm.
5%. 5%. Out of that 5%, 3.8% are black males, and 1.7 or 1.8%, something like this. I said 5%. So I think it's 3.6%. I'm sorry, 3.6% of black males, and like 1.4, 1.3% are black females.
Hmm.
So what's going to happen when we are in an economy that is solely based on technology and we're not the producers of that? What's going to happen when we exist in the world, right? And we know algorithmic bias exists. So we're not programming these models.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah,
do
I
you
saw
think is going
something
to
the other day that said I think it was a Google HR AI assistant that was just tossing away ethnic names, like black names and Hispanic names, just, what I'm saying? But go
Well,
ahead. Let
well,
me
stuff.
know.
No. I'm with you. No, I'm with you, and I'm glad that you added that example. Stuff like that is going to continue to happen because we're not coding. It's a beautiful documentary, brother, and I know I keep hitting you with a lot of resources. Watch the movie Coded Bias.
Mm.
It's a show. Coded Bias is a documentary. I think it's either on
It's on
the make
Netflix. I
is
seen it
on
on
Netflix.
Netflix. Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, so you did watch it
No,
before?
I saved it. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh my goodness. Everybody needs to watch Coded Bias.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's bias in facial recognition, it's bias in autonomous driving, it's bias in a lot of these AI models. What is going to happen when if we continue if we're not involved in the development of these models and yet these models are responsible for making decisions?
Mm.
Oh, about your credit, whether you should get the car, whether you should get the house, whether, is that a black person I see on the road? What happens when we're not creating these models? And it's so it'll be infused with their bias.
Mm.
Their bias, the
Hmm.
people who are creating the models, their
Absolutely.
bias will then be interjected into the development of that. So we need to, and look, right now, I don't know if you saw this too, brother. In California, they have a burger spot with AI robots. So
Mm.
you walk in, They have an AI, like it's like a machine that recognizes your face, and by recognizing your face, they already know your order, how you like your stuff cooked. You have like a couple of people in the store, maybe 2 or 3 people in the store, but AI is taking your order. AI is that the machines are back there. Sooner or later, you don't think that that model is going to be duplicated with McDonald's or Burger King or any of these other fast food spots? So then what's going to happen to human labor? Right now, you won't need them. They even have autonomous driving truck drivers
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
Autonomous driving, I'm talking about trucks
Yep.
in California on the road. My uncle and my cousin, they're truck drivers. That's what my uncle been doing. He's 60 years old, 61 years old. He'll be 61 in October. He's been doing this his whole life. So what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years once they perfect those trucks, those autonomous driving trucks, and say, we don't need you anymore?
Mm.
So people need to think about this stuff. That's where the world is heading. So I understand that people are into the crystals, the rocks, and the spiritual systems and all of that stuff. You better get involved in science and technology and engineering and mathematics. You better get involved in that stuff too, because the economy is going to be based on that. We see it now. Look at what Facebook. Now you have the meta business and meta this and meta that. Even our Zooms now. Shoot, I I had a Zoom meeting with one of my students after I hung up the Zoom. I'm sorry, ended the Zoom. They did the AI gave me a whole summary of all of my points. And
Right.
so a student wouldn't have to sit and watch me talk for an hour. AI gave them a whole summary of the points that were discussed. I mean, we see it now, brother. And so we got to get our children involved in STEM. And so that's why myself and others are on the front line promoting STEM heavily to our community, starting with our babies. So I've been developing programs, salute to Conscious Ingenuity. That's an African-centered, I say STEAM program, because I have a double A in mind: science, technology, engineering, art, agriculture, and mathematics. It's an African-centered STEAM program to give families and schools access to this African-centered STEM model to motivate our children to get involved in STEM and to also support their interests and increase their learning and comprehension of STEM concepts. Then we had the UACI. That's the shield that's behind me. The UACI camp, which was a partnership between Conscious Ingenuity and the Uhuru Academy. So shout out again to Baba Amin Ojuwoke. And this is a camp that we've been running for the past 3 years. I'm sorry, 3 years. This is our third cohort, starting on July the 8th. And it's full, but we just got a sponsorship with the CAP Center of Morgan State University. Shout out to Dr. Kevin Cornegay, who blessed us with a $25,000 check, making the camp free for all of the children.
Dope.
And so we're on the front lines trying to get our people prepared for what's going to come down the pipeline. And what's coming down the pipeline is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, a whole economy that is going to be based on those disciplines. And if we don't get involved, brother, we're going to be locked out.
And that's, we can look from the 60s, Huey and other, Black radical philosophers and revolutionaries talked about the eventual coming of automation and what what will happen to us politically during these times. I'm not going to go deep into that because I don't want to derail necessarily the conversation, but you mentioned something that was I wanted to touch on anyway, and STEAM: science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. From an
agriculture. I say agriculture.
I'm sorry.
I do a double A.
Double A. Agriculture.
I do a double A. Yeah, I do art, agriculture. Go ahead.
Oh no. Okay. Double A. Agriculture and art. From an African-centered paradigm, how does agriculture and art kind of complete the idea of STEM, meaning like just science, technology, engineering, mathematics? How does agriculture and art add on to that framework?
Oh, beautiful question. So check this out. Earlier, I told you, I said, we look at the pyramids and we say, that's a great engineering project, right? A lot of us, I'm talking about just with my engineering.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great, oh my gosh, how did they align that with the sun, moon, and stars? It's a great engineering project. it was art to them.
Mm-hmm.
That was art. So
Right.
it's, engineering is really like applied art in a sense. It's
Mm-hmm.
art
Mm-hmm.
in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
We create with engineering.
Mm.
I remember reading a quote a long time ago that said, scientists study the world the way it is, right? Engineers, we create the world we want to experience, right?
Mm.
So it's creativity. So think about that. With engineering, you're designing things that are in your mind. An engineer thought of this platform that we're on right now,
Right.
right?
Right.
The internet. Somebody thought these are all ideas that we've manifested, and it's creativity. So engineering is art. It's creativity. It's all of those things. They're one and the same. You can't even disconnect the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Just like with art, you're creating things, you're designing things. It's engineering is art, and then it's an art to even teaching engineering, to teaching science, to teaching mathematics. That's an art form to
Mm-hmm.
be able to communicate those ideas and concepts. Creating circuits and robots and stuff. That's art. It's art. It's
Mm-hmm.
creativity. It's all one.
Mm.
It's all one. I
Mm.
love talking to artists and work with artists to design certain things, because that's what engineers, we help manifest those ideas through art. It's art. It's
Right.
art. And so it's a connection that a lot of people don't see, with art. I'm not, and they don't see it. And then also agriculture. That's a science. It's a science to growing food, the soil, to know the soil, quality soil, or bad soil, good soil, when to plant the seeds and when not to. How do you cultivate? How do you develop it? It's a agricultural science. It's a whole field. So a lot of people will say, well, I don't know why Dr. Ma'at want to add agriculture in there. That's separate from math and science. No, it's not.
Hmm.
Read about what is name. I'm thinking about George Washington Carver. That's science.
Mm-hmm.
You can even Google agricultural science. It's a whole field. It's a whole field. So from an African center position, I always say I'm a child of the Maroons, right?
Right. Right.
So when I'm thinking about liberation
Mm-hmm.
and liberation and sovereignty, you need all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You need science,
Mm-hmm.
you need technology, you need engineering, you need mathematics, you need medicine. So let's not forget that. You need agriculture, you need art, you need all of those things.
Right.
And there's a connection between all of those things. It's a connection. It's all interconnected, as I stated earlier. Mm-hmm.
You kind of, and that sparked a question in my mind. What your answer did. And so as far as the agricultural aspect of STEAM, so we know our ancestors here in America, whether it was through the system of sharecropping or whether it was when we were enslaved. Obviously, we were the ones out in the field doing the agricultural work. Even before that, in Africa, obviously,
teach.
you know what I'm saying? We were already doing these things. Some of those things that we, from the rice to the watermelon to the okra, are things that we brought over here, right? But the idea, I remember it was in the news probably a couple months ago. I forgot which
I know where
politician
you're
of the
going at. I already
day
know
was.
it. I know what you're about to say.
So let me ask, the idea that we came over here as unscientific, unskilled laborers that were taught, agriculture and these different agricultural sciences. What were your thoughts whenever you heard that?
I laughed. I said, "What a fool!" I know exactly what you're talking about. Talking about, they were trying to justify slavery.
Yeah,
slavery was cool because after I forgot which politician. It was a black politician. It was a black male politician who talked about. Oh, you know who it was?
Who?
Ben Carson.
Oh, wow.
That's who it was.
I'm not surprised though.
It was Ben Carson and it was another black politician. It was two of them. I'm looking at the other one. I can't catch his name. It was two of them though. It was Ben Carson and another black politician who was trying to justify slavery by saying that we learned skills when we, during the era of enslavement and colonization, we learned skills. And you know how sometimes the stuff is just so foolish, you just have to laugh.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to laugh. And it's won't you, brother, go study pre-colonial Africa.
Mm,
Get that book by Sheikh Anti Jope,
mm.
right? Pre-colonial Africa. Or get that yellow book by Theophilo Banga that talks about pre-colonial Africa as well, to really understand what our brothers and sisters were doing. Those pyramids, the Sphinx, the Temple of Karnak, and a lot of the, even, Brother Ankh always goes back to West Africa and talks about, the oh my God, it's slipping me right now. The schools that we had in Timbuktu, those
Hmm.
universities. You know, when you know that stuff and then you hear dudes talk like that, or fools, I don't want fools talk like that, you just laugh
Mm,
at the ignorance, at the
mm.
level of ignorance, that they possess. We came, that's why we were able to cultivate a lot of those things when we got here. We were already cultivating rice.
Right,
That was one of the staples in West Africa.
right.
We already knew how to do those things, when we before we got here. That's why we were able to do them so efficient, because we were already doing them in Africa. So a lot of those skills, see, a lot of the African men, when they came over here, they worked as blacksmiths. They didn't just learn that stuff. We were blacksmiths in Africa. That
Mm,
metallurgy, we were doing that in Nubia.
hmm.
And so those are the skills. We brought a lot of that stuff with us. They didn't go over there and get anybody that was simple and stupid with no skills and brought them over to build a nation. They
Right.
went over there, they brought the best and the brightest, the strong and the youngest over here to build this country. And we came with most of the skills. We came with because we've already built civilizations. Let's be clear. We already had Kemet. We had Ghana. We had Sungay and Mali. And we've already built civilizations and stuff like that. So we already had those skills when we came over here to America. That's why we were able to build the things we built when we got here, because we came with the skills. They didn't give us anything.
Mm.
They didn't give us anything at all. In fact, let me say this to you. I'm reading a book called it's in my From Flight to Freedom. It's a
Hmm.
book about Maroons. It's a
Okay.
book about Maroons. And in that particular book, the author talks about how when we would run away and form our own communities, and then European military expeditions would take place, they used to come in and be astonished at how we were living. So
Mm,
that mentality that white folk, people had, like white folk, like we can't do without them now, they were astonished
mm,
that we were running whole cities and towns, fortified towns and cities, where we were cultivating rice and sugar and everything that we needed. We knew how to store these things. We knew how to hide them, because during the military expeditions, they would come in and try to destroy all the crops and stuff like that to
mhm,
starve us out. They talked about how the men weren't starving. We were making our own clothes. We were producing different items and conducting trade with free blacks, with other maroon sites, even with whites, because the whites were battling each other, the French, the British, the Dutch, the
mhm,
Portuguese. And so they would be at odds with each other, but we were trading amongst them. We were trading with pirates, and we were producing everything. We were our own self-contained, I don't want to say units, but we had our own self-contained, like, communities, in a
mhm,
sense, self-sufficient communities. And the reason for that is because we already had those skills. We
mm,
already had the skill set, from Africa,
mm.
and so anyway, that statement, I laughed about it. I laughed. I was
Mhm.
like, what a fool. But both of them were fools for saying it. But then I got upset because I said, golly, we listen to our people.
Right.
They don't even know this history. So I laughed, but it was also sad and frustrating.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you kind of mentioned earlier about what you're doing and your theories on African-centered science education is being put into practice. And
Absolutely.
as you know, Fred Hampton said, "Theory without practice ain't shit." So you know, I salute you for that. And I wanted to know, so when your students hear these stories about our ancestors in Africa and our ancestors here in America, and these things that they built and the sciences that they knew and taught. How does that does that, in your opinion, change their perspective on STEM or STEAM whenever
Absolutely.
they hear, what their people come from?
Absolutely. And I had the data. See,
Mm,
that's the thing. It's one thing to develop a model. It's another thing to implement it and test it, right?
mm-hmm,
To test it and actually measure the efficacy of that model. And so that's what we've been doing. So this was a great question. Absolutely. We've seen high percentages in, their confidence. They feel confident in their ability to participate in science, math, engineering, and technology. We've even seen a 50% jump in their desire to go to college.
mm,
At the beginning of some of these, at the beginning of the UACI camp, when we first surveyed the students, 40% of them said they would go to college. After they finished, 90% of them said they wanted to go to
wow.
college, right? So
Mm-hmm,
we saw an increase in that. We saw an increase. I can't even tell you, brother. I had recently went up for a $200,000 NSF grant, and NSF, that stands for National Science Foundation grant, to study the efficacy of utilizing an African-centered pedagogy in curriculum for the education of African American STEM learners. And so I was awarded that. I
mm,
was awarded that. It's public. You can go to their NSF awards awardee search engine, type in my legal name, and it'll pop up.
mm,
And so I got that. And so we have it for 2 years, and we just completed our first year. And just again, we implemented conscious ingenuity at a school, and we collected data to see how utilizing an African-centered model works, on African American STEM learners. These kids, what I tell you, it brought tears
mm,
to my eyes looking at the data
mm,
and how a lot of these kids weren't sure of themselves. They lacked the confidence, the interest, the motivation to pursue STEM. And then by the end of the year, we just did our closing ceremony in May. The kids were just, their
mm,
confidence shot through the roof.
mm,
The parents talked about how they noticed a difference in their child's confidence in STEM and their child's interest in STEM. They noticed an overexcitement, an
mm,
increase in excitement to be involved in that. And then when I'm there, I'm asking them questions. Tell me about an LED. Tell me about some of the projects you did. And they're explaining to me, Doc, we did a project where we used copper tape and we lit up an LED. What's an LED? What about motors? What about this? What about that? Then I'm asking them, what are the principles of Ma'at? Truth, justice. So wait a minute. Not only are they excited about STEM, but with this African-centered model that we're using to educate them, we're also developing their character
mm,
because they talked about the 7 principles of Ma'at and the importance of justice and truth and reciprocity and harmony and balance and
mm,
order and propriety. Not only are we doing that, we're helping them to we're supporting their learning and comprehension of STEM concepts, as attested by be asking them about the projects. So they're understanding STEM concepts, their confidence in interest is increasing. What else did I just say? Their character is
mm,
being developed. Their
mm,
critical thinking skills are being cultivated. I'm trying to think, it was one more thing. Oh, this is one of the most important
mm,
things. They're now understanding that it is their duty and obligation to use STEM knowledge to advance Black people. See, that's what
mm,
happens in an African-centered educational model, STEM
mm,
model.
mm,
Now you're being encouraged to learn science, technology, engineering, math. Yes, yes, yes. But to use that knowledge to advance your families and your communities locally, nationally, and globally,
mm,
right? So
mm,
we did that with the children, because typically a lot of our kids will go get a science degree, an engineering degree, a math degree, and they go work for Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, some of those defense contractors or the
mm,
government, and feel like they made it.
right.
With the African-centered educational STEM model, now you're being encouraged to use STEM knowledge to advance Black people. Within the African-centered STEM model, we are healing and strengthening your Africanity. What is
Mm,
that going to do? That's going to understand that you have a duty and obligation to all Black African people, no matter where they are in the diaspora. Come
mm,
on, man. That
mm,
model, this model, I'm telling you, brother, and I'm telling you, brother, I'm going to do everything that I can to promote it and to continue to get the data, because that's going to be my next book. My next
Oh,
book
absolutely.
right now I'm
Hmm.
just publishing and I'm just
Hmm.
getting all the data.
Hmm.
But after I get the data, I'm going to publish it and put it out there. So I'm going to make sure that I send you both papers
Please do.
so you
Please.
can check them out for yourself. But that is what that model has done for
Hmm.
those babies in the Conscious Ingenuity program, as well as the UACI Summer STEM Camp.
No, that's amazing. And I wanted to kind of ask you, as someone who has a PhD, someone in academia, whenever we have these frameworks that we create, right? What is the process like of spreading that framework in hopes that our community all across the country and even the world can get a hold of this framework and implement it to the best of their said ability? How does this African centered pedagogy, how do you when it comes to STEM or STEAM, how do you spread it, how do you get the word out, like what are the channels that you have to go through?
No, this is beautiful, beautiful question. So within the Engineering Education Research Committee,
Hmm.
community, we publish papers.
Hmm.
And so to get the word out within the Engineering Education Research Committee, community, I keep saying community,
Hmm.
we publish papers, peer-reviewed published papers.
Hmm.
So we put those papers in conferences. So for example, I have a bunch of papers published with the American Society for Engineering Education. We also have a paper published with the National Society for Black Engineers, NSBE. They just produced their first journal called BEST,
Hmm.
the best journal. So Black Excellence in Science
Hmm.
and Technology. And so you normally get the word out through it. Now, so you got different, so we have two communities.
Hmm.
So you talking about the professional community, and
Yeah.
then you have like our community. So within the
Hmm.
professional community, you're publishing your work and your papers are being peer reviewed in different conferences and different journals, and there are different levels to different conferences and journals, of course, like they're ranked, of
Hmm.
course, and as far as
Yeah.
prestige and all, stuff like that. But more normally, you get the word out by writing about them and getting your papers in journals and publications, or even publishing articles online and stuff like that. But within the professional community, that's how we do it. In the academic community, that's how we do it. That's how we get the word out. You can also go to different educational institutions and do workshops and seminars, right, in educational, institutions and things of that nature, and also even speak and do workshops at conferences. So that's typically how we get the word out.
Hmm.
Now, as far as our people go, shout out to, I'm thinking about the Temple of New African Thought. I was just there for Dr. Asar's community.
Mm.
So doing presentations within the community to let them know that this model is here. It's a framework that anyone can take and use and build on, right?
Right.
And so we do that. So again, doing that. So lectures across, Tony Brown and them always say the lecture circuit, going to lectures,
Hmm.
coming on to this podcast is
Hmm.
helping to get the word out, and things of that nature. And again, writing books
Hmm.
is helping. It helps to get the word out.
I saw something online interesting, and it's so we saw. I'm pretty sure you saw the video where of Neil deGrasse Tyson's response to Terrence Howard, and um, somebody, yeah, and so and somebody had posted it in one of the comments. Um, uh, Someone I know is just extremely who is extremely into astrophysics and the study of the stars and the universe, and she spoke about knowing people that she made a comment saying that wow, the moon is beautiful today, and they're like, oh, I don't really even be looking up there like that, like right. But whenever I think about this, and you think about ancient man, like our whole our whole world was the stars. Our whole world was wanting to learn how the like how the heavens worked, and how the things on earth worked, and what we can do to how we can use different things to, as tools for our advancement or our understanding. And this study of wanting to know how the natural world works is a really, really old one, right? It's one that from the, dawn of humanity, um, there was always a wanting to know of, just the inner workings of the natural world. Today, fast forward to 2024, and this is not just um, African people, I would say. It's people in general. A lot you tend to see that a lot of people are way less interested in, the things that men of antiquity were interested in, due to, I guess, a lot of the distractions that we have today, having to work 40, 50 hours a week, all of these kind of environmental things. But whenever we look at the future of us getting back to that, right? Us as African people beginning to learn, love, and appreciate the natural world, how it works, not to invent pseudo conspiracy theories
Yeah,
about
no, 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 no.
things, but to how to really, understand these things and study them and not fall for the pseudo conspiracies that tend to plague our community. Um, when you see the future of STEAM within our community and just our love, getting our love back for the sciences and mathematics of the world. Like, what do you for the future? What do you see?
Oh my goodness, that's a tough one, right? So you said getting our love back for science, like actually loving science and math. We gotta. You said, what do I see? If we don't make some changes, I see us not being there in those disciplines. If we don't make some changes, and by changes I mean really pushing our children to be involved in that, to get involved in the science, those disciplines, science, technology, engineering, math, art, really pushing our children to get involved. And speaking specifically about STEM, if we don't do that in the future, I don't see us being there, and I don't
Yeah.
see a love, or I don't see us loving it and valuing it, because we're not even in it now, right?
Yeah.
It's not a love there now. I mean, you have parents who literally prioritize sports over that stuff. I don't do that in my household. I prioritize STEAM over sports, but you'll have parents that, like, when football season comes, or baseball season, or or softball, they have no problem recruiting kids, especially Black children. They don't have any problem recruiting Black children, right? But daggone, for a STEM camp, it's like pulling teeth. To try to get children in your STEM camp, to try to get children in camps that will develop them culturally, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, is pulling teeth with the parents. So I think as Black people, we really need to reprioritize things, right? What really look at our values, really look at our values and our priorities, and really, really do some cleaning. When I say some cleansing, I'm talking about what do we actually value? We don't value science.
Right.
You think parents want to, we don't value it. There's no, there's no value, but it's value to the sports.
Oh yeah.
Football, everybody's watching football. They watching football. They got their kids going in football camps, and their kids are on it. Oh, my kid can't be in the STEM program this summer, Doc. Why? What's going on? Oh, little Daryl is playing football. Are you serious right now? So you're going to pass up a free 2-week camp for them to learn cybersecurity and artificial intelligence and machine learning because you want them to throw the ball around? Come on now. So we gotta rearrange our priorities, brother. And I'm not knocking people who play sports. I'm just saying that I don't think that it should come before, academics. It shouldn't come before, our love of science and math. And it should be that. So we really, really need to rearrange our priorities. But that would, we would also, or that necessitates us, or that causes us to have to evaluate our values.
Mm-hmm.
We really have to evaluate our values and rearrange our priorities. That's what I wanted to say. I was trying to figure out how I want to convey my thoughts, but that's what I wanted to say. We really need to rearrange our priorities, but that would mean we would have to evaluate or reevaluate our values. And that's what we would need to do in order to, you saying, how do we fall in love with it?
Mm-hmm.
We got to start learning about it. We got to start promoting it.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to value it to even want to do those things.
Yeah.
How do you love something and want to promote something that you don't value? You don't see it as a need or of importance to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that it starts there with rearranging
No.
evaluating our values, rearranging our priorities, and teaching and promoting science, technology, engineering, mathematics for us to develop love for it again. And that's what I had to bring it all in.
Yeah. You brought that plane home.
Yeah, I had to bring it in.
You brought that plane home. Dope, supremely dope. Dr. Ma'at, it's a pleasure to have you on. I hope, we can definitely collab some more because this was extremely dope. For anybody that wants to help with your project, let them know how they can do so, and I'll make sure I have all the links in the description.
Beautiful. So family, make sure that you head on over to consciousingenuity.com. Consciousingenuity.com. Okay, or ingenuity. That's that Baltimore lazy type. We say ingenuity, but it's ingenuity. Consciousingenuity.com to sign up, join the email list. If you want to reach out to me, you can contact me directly at dr.maat, that's maat.msu@gmail.com. Also, family, make sure that you get your children enrolled in the ASAFO training camp. You can go to asafocamp.com. That's a 1-week character enrichment camp for boys. It's all boys camp. And they learn a lot of life skills, and they're with the brothers working out and learning, critical thinking and conflict resolution, self-defense, and all kinds of stuff. Also, the Agoji camp. Get your children enrolled in the Agoji camp. You can go to agojicamp.com. The website will be up by the end of this week. But you can shoot to agojicamp.com and get your girls enrolled in that camp. And that's a character enrichment camp for Black females where they learn life skills, man. Some of these camps, I'm not going to lie to you, brother, it's like I'm reliving my childhood, because I'm like, I wish I would have had this when I was a kid,
Right,
and so just trying to make these kids, trying to enhance their childhood. That's all, given my childhood experiences. And also UACI, if they want more information, they can go to uacistemcamp.com. This summer, this summer is full. We can't take any more students. But just have the website, subscribe to our email list. So when the next cohort comes, the fourth one that next year comes, that you can be involved in that. And lastly, make sure that you get your Meltrek. I know that I have my, you can't see it. Oh, you can't see it. Oh, because of my virtual background.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Here it is.
Yeah, right there.
I got hold it like this.
Yeah.
So my Meltrek. So this is Meltrek. Let me go back. Let me lean back. This is Meltrek episode 3. Exploring the Ma'afa, the arrival of the Portuguese. Okay, so I'm sorry, I said it, I butchered it. This is Meltrek, Exploring the Ma'afa, part 1, the arrival of the Portuguese. This is the 3rd installment of the Meltrek series, where we're teaching children about the origins of the transatlantic slave trade. And so make sure, family, that you go to meltrek365.com to get the Meltrek. And let me say this before we go. Meltrek is my first child. This was my first baby. And I remember a lot of people said, Doc, you are a professor of engineering, right? You are an engineer. Why are you out here teaching Black history? And this is what I told them. I said, Black history does a number of things. It develops your character. It boosts your self-esteem, your self-confidence. It strengthens, it affirms your culture. I want to grab the children there. Then I can teach them math and science. I could teach them math, science, and STEM. But I was telling them, let's start with the history. That's why in all of the classes that I teach, I teach electrical circuits. I teach electric circuits, signal systems and processes. And I teach introduction to electrical engineering. I start on the first day, and Brother Uncle Cat can attest to this. They come in, my students come in, and we talk Black history first before anything. Before we get into the concepts, we start with Black history. And so Meltrek is actually my first child, my first brainchild. And so I always tell folks, I love it. I'm passionate about it. Make sure you support this. We got to stop feeding filth to our children, the Disney and the Nickelodeon and all that other stuff. I don't know if Nickelodeon is still a big thing, but all of that stuff. Stop feeding them filth and start giving them things like Meltrek. So make sure you get Meltrek from Meltrek365.com.
No doubt, no doubt. Again, Dr. Ma'at, I definitely appreciate what you're doing. I definitely appreciate, just what this does for the youth, and just hearing your stories about how excited the youth that you're working with get around just educating themselves is a beautiful thing. So I definitely salute you, and I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you so much, brother, for having me. And I salute you. And you keep up the Blacktastic work. I've been watching you. And so you keep up the Blacktastic work. Those that Baba means words.
No doubt.
Blacktastic. I had to take it from him. I said, Baba, I'm taking that. But keep up the Blacktastic work, brother. And I salute you. And thank you so much, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Peace and love. Peace.